Welcome back to Crazy Gamers Games, and today we are doing part 18 of my attempt to build an Adeptus Mechanicus army for Warhammer 40K for the very first time. And not a lot of build progress since the last video. I'm still working on the infiltrators slash ruststalkers. I believe they're going to be just infiltrators, but I had some requests to just talk about some of the magnets I use in the different sizes. So today I'm going to talk about the smaller magnets I use for smaller units like the Skitarii, the ruststalkers, the infiltrators, and then in a later video I'll talk about the odd larger sizes I use for knights and armature class knights and things like that. So I've tried many places to get good magnets from, and I finally found a place. It's the Magnet Baron. He has a website, and he's fantastic customer service, and the magnets are just fantastic. I get the N52s. They're the strongest you can get in these size, and he has sizes I can't find anywhere else. Like these magnets right here, these are 1 millimeter by a half a millimeter. These are by far the smallest magnets I have ever found, and it has taken me a while to find magnets this small. And then I also have 1 millimeter by 1 millimeter, and I'll show you in a little bit where these smallest magnets come into play. So these will be the smallest I have, the 1 millimeter by 1 millimeter and the 1 millimeter by half a millimeter. They're not exactly 1 millimeter, they're a little under in diameter than 1 millimeter. But a 1 millimeter hole with a little green stuff and a little super glue holds the magnet in perfect. Because it is so small, it is very hard to place these magnets. So that's the smallest magnets. And then I have some 1/16 by 1/32. These are 2 millimeter by 1 millimeter. And then I have 1/16 by 1/16. That's a 2 by 2. And then these don't have a label, but I can tell by looking at them that these are 1/16 by 3/32, or 2 by 3 millimeter. And then I have 3/32, which is 3 millimeter by 1 millimeter. And then I have 1/8 inch, which is about 2.5 millimeter, almost 4, like 3.5. I'm sorry, 3.5 millimeter by 2 millimeter, and then 1/8 by 1/8, which is like 3.5 by 3.5, and then I have 1/8 by 32, so 3.5 millimeter roughly by 1 millimeter. These are very small magnets. And then I also have some 3/16 by 1/16, you know, a little bit bigger for certain, like on the Ballistaries, the guns, the las cannons, the actual mount for the gun is where I use these, and the dragoons. And then I use also the Magnet Baron sells the drill bits for each individual magnet, and these drill bits are sharp, they're durable. This is my second order for Magnet Baron, and I have never been happier. So, let me talk to you about my progress on pinning or magnetizing the infiltrator's arms. It is very tricky. If you look inside here, let me zoom in a little bit. If you look at this is his taser goad, and these are very small. If you look in there, that is a 2 millimeter by 1 millimeter magnet, and it barely fits. You have to drill this hole dead center, because if you're off a little bit, you're going to blow out the wall of the hand. And this is the easy magnet to install. If you look at his hand that connects to it, that is a 0.5 millimeter by 1 millimeter magnet. And if you take a look here, If I can get it the right orientation. There we go. And it connects. And it's on there. I mean, it's not going to come off. It's pretty good with these N52 magnets. They hold pretty good. So that is how to magnetize these infiltrators and rust stalkers. The rust stalkers would be the same way because they use the same type of hand for the transonic blades and razors. But that is that. It's a tricky. If you use a smaller magnet inside the taser goat or power sword and one of the small magnets here, it won't have enough power. That's why I always use the biggest magnet I can use possible. And the most powerful, which are the N52s. But that's that. And then on the hands, if you look, this is the back of the hand. And if I take one of my 2mm magnets and I push it up there, there's barely enough room that I'm going to get a 1mm magnet in there. So I don't know if I have to use the 0.5mm or not. I haven't done this arm yet. I was waiting for the more powerful, smaller N52 magnets. But I don't know if I'm going to be able to get the larger magnet in this arm, but I will find out, and it will be in the next video whether I can do it or not. And this is the arm that connects to the guns. Now it looks to be to where a magnet, a 2mm magnet, a longer strip. It looks to be where a 2mm magnet would fit in there. But if you look right here, it has these little pins in the arm, like rods, like little pistons that hold the arm on. And if you try to drill that out, I mean, it's 1mm. What's there is 1mm, so you could theoretically just cut this piece off right here and glue a 2mm magnet on here. Actually, you could probably glue a 3mm magnet. Yeah, you could glue a 3mm magnet. Just cut this section off. Or you could have it extend a little further and glue a 3x1mm magnet right on top of that hand. And then once it's painted, you're not really gonna notice the magnet. And that's probably most likely what I'm gonna do. Because my other option is to drill a 0.5mm hole in the center and insert one of the 0.5mm by 1mm magnets. But if I have to do that on the gun side also, I don't believe it's going to have enough power. So if I just cut this off very flush and then to the three posts, glue the 3mm by 1mm magnet, I'll have enough power if I have to put a smaller magnet into the firearm, the flechette blaster or the sub-carbine. But that is a brief talk about magnets and how I use them with the infiltrators. I use them in previous videos. I showed how I use them on the Skitaris. They're pretty much standard, mostly 2mm by 1mm and 2mm by 2mm. But for the backpacks, if you want to magnetize those, I do use a 3mm by 2mm magnet in both the backpack and the body. Now, a little tip on inserting the magnets. When you drill into something like this taser goat here, the tip of the drill bit, let me just get my drill out. What do you do there? Here's a 3mm drill bit. If you take a look at this, you see how that has a point on it? That point right here, this section, from where the actual width of the drill bit is to the tip, that's almost a millimeter in depth. And when you're drilling through something that is only a millimeter thick, or a little more than a millimeter thick, when you put this drill in there and you drill with it, if you were going to go deep enough to sink the magnet flush, you would break through the other side of the hand. So what I do is I drill as deep as I can drill with the actual drill bit with the point on it. Then I use something what is called an end mill. This is the 2 millimeter end mill. And you see on the end mill, it is flat on the top. It doesn't have a point, and it has cutting edges on the sides and on the top. This is for milling in a mill, like plunge milling or slot milling. But I find if you're very gentle, never put these in a power tool, because these are razor sharp and they can break off and they can do a lot of damage if they hit you. I just use them by hand, and I make the starter hole as deep as I can with the drill bit, and then I just stick the end mill in, and I turn it very slowly, very lightly, until I flatten down the point to the depth I want the magnet to go. So I'm able to put, if I have a 1 millimeter thick magnet and a 1.2 millimeter thick piece of plastic, I'm able to put that 1 millimeter thick magnet in there by making the pocket perfect. And this also, with these end mills, they are sharp on the sides too, so if you're not perfectly slow or you rock it, you will make the hole bigger. And sometimes that good, you can get a little green stuff or plastic putty in there. But if you're going to use end mills, be very careful, and please do not use them in power tools, because they can be devastating. They're not designed for hand power tools at all. They're designed for milling machines, and even in milling machines, they can break very easily and become projectiles. And the fact about how sharp they are, they could do an immense amount of damage. So that's my tips on magnetizing these very small, finicky bits for like an infiltrator or anything. I haven't really found too much with the Adeptus Mechanicus that with the right size magnet I can't magnetize. I do have a large variety of magnets, and I have shopped all around for magnets, and the Magnet Baron is what is who I'm going to be using from now on. I think his magnets are far superior than other magnets from other places. I mean, you can order them places like Amazon, or sometimes a local hobby store will have some. But I feel if you're in the United States, the Magnet Baron is the way to go. Now, if you are worried, this will be the last thing on magnets. If you're worried about this joint, the way it moves, and the way, the strength of the power of the magnet, you could do what's called like a pin magnet, where you could take a piece of piano wire, and this is very small. I believe this is a little less than 1/2 millimeter piano wire, which it is very strong. I mean, I can't even bend it very well with my fingers. You have to use tough pliers to cut it. But you could do a pinning joint on this, where you would take this little hand section right there, and you would put one of these little pins right there, and you insert the pin, and you just have a little bit sticking up, and then corresponding on this unit, on this piece, you would drill a little hole where that pin would line up, and then basically you would have a pin on both the taser goad or the power sword, and you would just slide this on like that. The magnet would hold it in place, and the pin would give it a little more rigid stability. And I'm most likely going to be doing that on these. This is just standard. This is actual music piano wire, and I have different diameters. This is, like I said, a little under a 1/2 millimeter. They do make thinner piano wire. I do not have that. I'm looking to get thinner piano wire, but I haven't tested on how strong it is. This stuff is extremely strong. I've come across this because I've ran into a problem with the two-handed weapons on my Skitaris. When they're magnetized, the arms on the glued arm on this two-handed weapon, putting the weapon on and off of the magnetized body, tends to wear at that glued joint. So I'm going to pin them and glue them with this piano wire so that that joint is more durable. So that will solve that problem. Unfortunately, I've already built about 20 of my 60 Skitari Rangers. So I will just have to pin them as they break. And I've had a couple breaks so far. Well, me and my son are entering the Vigilus Defiant narrative campaign play. So I will give you updates to that. He's playing an entire easy-to-build Death Guard. The only thing that's not easy to build in it is a foul Blight Spawn, I believe. And the No Fear, but that's pretty easy to build. And he has, and he's using the Gellerpox mutants from Rogue Trader Kill Team. So he has a nice 1,500 point army that he's going to use against my Adeptus Mechanicus in the Vigilus narrative campaign. So keep an eye out for Crazy Gamers Games. I'm the Crazy Gamer. Have a great day.